Hello! So today we're going to be doing a bit of repotting of some plants. I'm doing a voiceover. Here we have my first petalum, and it's been doing okay, but I just don't think it's doing as well as it should. So let's dump it out and see what the roots are looking like, because I'm not really sure. It's been in that semi-hydro for like a year now. Okay, and we have some roots, but we really have only one or two really healthy looking roots. But all around the base, see that's all I got going on. But around the base of the plant, so right below the leaves, it was trying to poke out new roots, but it was just not damp enough. So the roots never were able to really grow. So I'm going to do a little thing where I put sphagnum. It's going to be half sphagnum moss, and the bottom part will be Leca beads. So I think that is going to work a lot better for this plant in the long run. I mean, it's been doing okay, but it's not thriving. And then here we have a Dendrobium, those mini Dendrobiums, and it's getting this molted color on its leaves. And I think that's due to my fertilizing issue that I was having. So we're going to take that apart and look at that. See, there's like a root sticking out. So the root was sticking out through one little slit. So I'm trying to push it back in without damaging it. But it's not really happening. So I'm going to have to cut the plastic container to save that root right there. So I'm going to go do that. And I think I was able to cut the plastic, and saved that little root. And there really weren't that many new roots, so I needed to save what I could. And it was growing out into the pot, so what I think I'm going to do is just plop it in the pot. And put some Leca beads at the bottom to kind of keep it up out of the pot. Having the main part of the plant helps with air circulation and can decrease mold. So you don't want it sitting too low in the pot. And there you go. So I put a little Leca beads around just to kind of hold it up. So that's that. Potted it up. Done. Just water it. Keep water in there. And that's been working really well. That's a technique that I've been... And there's those leaf colors again, which I think is due to calcium. And there's light coloring, but we're going to go over fertilizer another time. So the other plant is a Bulbophyllum bicolor, I believe. I've had this one for a while. I have had a lot of new growth on it, but I haven't... There's a new growth right there. I haven't had a flower yet, and there is an old spike on it, so it is blooming size. And the moss at the top just gets so gross and yucky, so I just want to kind of freshen up the moss and try something new. These guys have really fine roots, and they really love being wet. I mean, they love being wet probably more than a Fragopedium does. So what I've been doing with this plant in particular was setting it so it was always sitting in some water. Now we have a Brassivola. Yes, this is a kind of seedling Brassivola. I did get it to bloom. It gave me 2 flowers last season. I do have a new growth maturing, so maybe I'll get some blooms, but I don't know. That plant also, I had to give it a bleach treatment because it had snails. And yeah, so here is my one and only Stanhopea. And I also saw snails on this, so I want to clear it out and treat it so that I don't have to deal with snails. But Stanhopeas are weird because they tend to send out flower spikes from the bottom. So I'm going to repot that in a different way now that we got this beast. This one I repotted, I think, like a year ago. And it was a root break, and here I am trying to maybe jiggle it out, but that's not happening. I try to push it to loosen the roots, but it's not happening. So I have to resort to cutting it open and freeing it that way. And those scissors weren't working, so I had cut it open. I'm going to pry and pull it and release this plant because it was really in there, and this plant just grows like crazy for me. I just have never experienced such crazy roots. So strong roots too. Like these guys are thick. There it is. Look at that thing. It's a beast. And like seriously, it's only been growing in that for maybe a little over a year. I did a repotting on it a little while. Well, when I did the repotting about a year or so ago, you can check the video. I'll put it down the link. But there it is. What am I going to do with this thing? I'm going to pot it up. I ended up dividing it, and it wasn't easy. And here it is. You know, I had it outside, so I was watering it kind of carelessly, and I did get the black spots, but I had it beautiful for years. It was a nice leaf. Yeah, but it's weird. And so here it is. The plant was in about 3/4 of it was in leca beads, just leca beads, but the rest was a mix of leca beads, perlite, and cocoa, but not chunks of cocoa, actually that fine cocoa. And that worked really, really well for this plant. And I didn't water it conventionally. I watered it, no, I watered it conventionally, not semi-hydro, because it was kind of like a mix of semi-hydro. Here are the ones I have potted up. So we have, what are we going to look at first here? We're going to look at our Bulbophyllum. I decided to put the Bulbophyllum with about half leca beads at the bottom and half sphagnum moss at the top. And I put it in this plastic pot so I can make a reservoir. I can raise the water up as high as I want or keep it as low as I want. And with that moss at the top, it really is going to keep it nice and moist the way these guys like to be. This just gives me a lot more control than just having a small little reservoir, you know? So I like that. And here is another technique, another way you can use, you know, the semi-hydro thing. I have it in a plastic container, but the leca beads are in a clay pot. So you can fill your plastic container as high as you want to create as much of a reservoir as you want, and that will wick up, you know, because of the clay and the leca beads, and you can adjust it however you want. And you know, Cattleya type plants like to dry out, so I think that media is going to work great. But it could also work great for people that live in humid climates. And here we have my Fragopedium, which has a spike, but it wasn't doing well. It wasn't getting enough water. That's kind of what that means there. And I potted it with a lot of sphagnum moss on the top in hopes that the new roots will grow out. So you can see almost half and half. And I think this is going to help a lot for root growth. And I had to get a deep pot because that one root went down. And these roots are like sticks. You can't bend them like other orchids. They'll break if you try to bend Fragopedium roots. So I had to go with a deeper pot because I didn't want to hurt that root. And instead of making holes, I just did a slit. So I'm kind of working on modifying the semi-hydro technique to work best for my environment and my particular plants. And there's that. I'm going to try a different type of fertilizer. I think this guy really wants some calcium, is what I've been told, and I believe it. So we're going to do some calcium, magnesium, add a little bit of extra of that, and I think it will be alright. This plant likes to tease me. It likes to act like it's going to die. Doesn't do anything for a while, then all of a sudden it shoots out new growth and I have blooms. So I'm going to hold on to it. I just kind of loosely just put it in this pot and kind of do a semi-hydro type of thing where I'll keep water always in the bottom and rinse it. But that's what I'm doing. It's kind of a bare root leca bead thing. And that's all of them. Well, except for the zygo. I'm going to do another video on that later, but you know, I really like the semi-hydro thing, but I just don't think you have to do it in the way that everybody else is saying you have to do it. You know, I've been growing semi-hydroponically for 2 years, and this thing is a good example of different use of leca beads. You know, I used a lot of leca beads in this, but I didn't use only leca beads, and I also didn't have a reservoir, and I watered it more conventionally because I had the cocoa in there as well, which retained more moisture, but it worked great. So these Leca beads, you know, yeah, this plant, you'll see in another video. The Leca beads are just a great media to use, but you can use them in different ways. You can make, you can mix them in with your bark or your moss. I wouldn't mix them with the moss, but layer it. I think layering is a really good way to grow your orchids, or any plant for that matter. When I grew other plants, I would like to put, you know, rocks or Leca bead at the bottom to give it more drainage and more airflow to the bottom of the roots. And you know, just I would like to just say that people should just get creative with the way they grow. This right here works well with the clay in the clay. Can work great for people living in a humid environment like, say, Florida, because the clay in the clay is going to dry out really fast. I use this method for my cacti and succulents, and it works really well. But for the orchid, I'm going to put it or keep it in this plastic to just add a little more humidity and just keep it a little more on the wet side, and really be able to have a better reservoir, or more or less, you know, depending on the season, depending on the weather. I can really modify and adjust this how I want without just having that little hole or slit at the bottom, you know, a designated reservoir. I like, and this one too, I can have this one just swimming in some water. But that one I do have the normal reservoir at the bottom. But thank you for watching, and I hope that gives you some ideas, you know, think outside the box, and stay tuned for that zygo.